Let's just forget the left versus right stuff for a minute. How do you solve homelessness? Well, we know how. You build homes and you wrap services around them. Mental health care, addiction treatment, job training, caseworkers. It costs less than cops, ER visits, or prison. And that model has been proven repeatedly. Finland did it in 2008, reduced homelessness by 65%. And so what is the United States doing? Militarized sweeps, bulldozing tents. Each time they sweep, it costs millions of dollars. And then the encampments come back in a few weeks. That doesn't solve homelessness. And how do you reduce street crime? Well, we know how. You build housing, you invest in jobs and mentors and healthcare, and that model's been proven repeatedly as well. Glasgow, Scotland, for example, used to be called the murder capital of Europe in 2004. They invested in housing, jobs, mentors, healthcare, launched a violence reduction unit that treated violent crime as a healthcare issue. Murder rates dropped by 60%. Baltimore just saw a huge drop in crime linked to community-led interventions. So what's the United States doing? More incarceration for private profits. This is the most expensive, least effective system of any wealthy nation. Total waste of money. So what about the biggest crimes? How do you reduce them? Corporate crimes. Well, you do that with regulations, which is another word for law and order. Without regulations, Blackstone gets to buy 275,000 homes and then rent them back to people as basically subscription housing, driving the prices up, reducing services, adding no value whatsoever. This is a practice called rent seeking. It means when you block people from the things that they need just to extract their income without adding any value. It's basically extortion, the kind that only the super wealthy can engage in after their money pile got so tall it corrupted their soul and they forgot the point of being a person. We don't need corporations buying housing for rent seeking when we have a housing crisis, which we don't need to have because we have more empty houses than we have houseless people. And we have tens of millions of acres of underused land. I'm not talking about parks or wildlife areas. And that doesn't even include millions more acres in strip mall sprawl, all of which could be used for people. We could be building housing, commercial, retail, third spaces like public parks, playgrounds, rec centers, theaters, places of worship, lowering housing costs, increasing quality of life. That would be a really good use of those corporate profits that are currently getting extracted from society to build the towering wealth of the Epstein class. But we don't have any of that because they refuse to pay their taxes, which is another corporate crime that you get to commit when you dominate an entire industry so nobody can function without your company, eliminating all competition, turning you not into a capitalist, but really a feudal lord, wherein all of humankind is born into your perpetual servitude, never working quite hard enough to feel safe and secure, kind of where you got us right now. Which is why corporations have to get broken up once they hit county limits, like we used to before the Civil War. Or for digital companies, just cap their income at the point right before they break the entire purpose of money, which is not to enslave each other, but as a convenient means of trade. That's the point of money, trade, which is another word for taking care of each other's needs. But we can't do any of that unless we outlaw corporate bribe money from politics, which means do not vote red or blue no matter who ever again, unless they're completely independent of corporate financing. Or you're just continuing to vote for the corporate crime syndicate. The Fortune 500 corporations don't just rob you of meaningful work, public spaces, a healthy environment, lower costs of living, and an ethical government. They're literally stealing people's cash. $50 billion from Americans every year, more than all the robberies, burglaries, car thefts combined. And you know the names of the criminals. Walmart, Amazon, McDonald's, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, all of these guys repeatedly get sued and fined for unpaid hours, denying breaks, stopping the clocks, false timekeeping, unpaid overtime, paying less than a minimum wage. All of this is called wage theft, stealing your hard-earned wages. And besides the lawsuits, how do we know this is happening from the GAO, the Government Accountability Office? It's an office that actually looks into the biggest crimes of all, corporate crime, and it's an office that shockingly Congress just proposed cutting by 50%. So much for law and order. So how should we deal with corporate crime, wage theft, fraud, tax evasion, violating regulations, funding politicians who keep us in forever wars with forever enemies so they can continue operating with impunity all over the world while their couple of thousand owners build bunkers to protect themselves from the inevitable results of their ongoing crimes? How do we deal with that? Well, maybe we could just follow the lead of the countries on earth who are the toughest on the biggest criminals, like Iceland, who jailed 26 bankers and CEOs after the 2008 financial crash. France, who convicted a mayor and an ex-prime minister for actual corruption, not going after homeless people with military weapons, and by remembering the point of a society, which is to do together what we can't do alone. Care for each other with all the amazing technology and wisdom and knowledge we've accumulated over the last 9,000 years since we started getting together in cities. The point of a society is not to hook us all up to an economic machine designed to suck every drop of life force out of us so the Epstein class can feed like 2,000 blood-sucking vampires. That's a horror movie.